Greetings, everyone. This is the lecture to the first part of Chapter 2, which is a journey into how the vital resource or soil forms and evolves. By the end of this lecture, my goal is for each of you to be able to, first, define what we mean by a soil body. Second, we'll list and explain the 5 critical factors that drive soil formation, commonly referred to as CLORPT or CLORPT, and we'll break down what that means. Third, you'll gain an understanding of the overall process of how soils develop. In the textbook, Chapter 2 ends with an introduction to the soil profile, in which we'll discuss in Part 2 of this unit's lecture and learning modules. As for course learning outcome, this learning module supports the outcome of describing the process of soil formation. Once we get into Chapter 3, that dives more into how soils are actually classified. So, what exactly is soil science? The technical term for our field is pedology. It's a study of how soil forms, known as soil genesis, as well as its classification and mapping. Think of it as the biography of soil, understanding its past, present, and how we can categorize it. Why is this important for natural resource students? Because soil is an incredibly valuable and critically, very slowly renewable resource. Civilizations have risen and fallen based on their ability to maintain their soil and water. Our textbook mentions early Chinese culture thriving on the fertile floodplains of the Yellow River and the ancient Egypt's dependence on the Nile's deposited soils. Those cultures lasted for thousands of years. Well, the roots of modern pedology go back to the 18th and 19th centuries. Notably with the Russian scientist V.V. Dekhechov. He's often credited with laying the groundwork, identifying the fundamental soil forming factors, and even beginning to name the soil horizons, those distinct layers you see when you dig into the ground, which we still use today. Later in the United States, Hans Jenny further developed and quantified these factors, making them central to how we understand soil formation. Hans Jenny published Factors of Soil Formation in 1941, further developing and quantifying these very factors we'll discuss. Before we delve into how soil forms, we need a clear definition of what a soil body actually is. According to our text, soil is simply a collection of natural bodies of the Earth's surface containing living matter that is able to support the growth of plants. It has a top boundary, where the atmosphere or shallow water begins, and it has a bottom boundary, which is generally considered the furthest reach of the deepest rooted plants. That's typically around 5 feet deep for most studies. Now, if you've ever walked across a field or a forest, you know that soil isn't uniform. It varies widely. In one spot, it might mostly be decayed plant material, and another it could be mostly sand. You can't truly understand a soil just by looking at the surface. To understand what's really going on, you have to do one thing: dig a hole. Since we can't dig up entire acres of land, soil scientists have developed a conceptual unit called the pidon, or pidon. A pedon is a small three-dimensional section of soil, usually about 1 meter by 1 meter in surface area and extending about 1.5 meters or 5 foot deep. It's taking a perfectly square slice of cake out of the earth so we can examine all of its layers. It's a human-made concept for study, not something that naturally exists as a distinct boundary in nature. When you have a collection of similar pedons, that's called polypedon. These are the units that eventually get mapped into what we call soil series, which you'll learn more about later, especially in chapter 3. So how does a soil pedon actually begin to form? Imagine a bare piece of rock. That rock isn't going to stay rock forever. The process starts when this solid rock begins to change into smaller mineral particles, with organic matter eventually mixing in. In the image, you can see solid rock at the top and soil collected below it with plants growing. This fundamental process is called weathering. Weather and plants are the primary agents responsible for this transformation. There are two main categories of weathering: physical or mechanical, names are kind of synonymous, and then chemical. Before getting into these categories, let's review our comprehension so far with a few questions.